Well, thank you. It was probably about 3 months ago, and I was driving in my car, and my phone rang, and I saw Pastor Phillips' name pop up on my phone, and honestly, whenever his name pops up, I try to answer quickly. But he was sitting with Reverend Cavanis, and they invited me to come speak at this event tonight. And I told him, honestly, it was going to be very difficult for me. One of the things you have to do as a CEO is you have to convince people that you're a good company to invest in. And so I was in Florida today at an investor conference, conducted 8 different meetings, meeting with investors, and I got on an airplane and hustled back here, went home, put a suit on, and got here in time. So, and Pastor Phillips was going to meet me, and he was late, so I beat him here. But honestly, it is truly an honor for me to be here, and it's not just an honor, but it's also humbling, and I'll tell you at the end why it's humbling. But it's a great honor, I think, to join all of you here tonight as you celebrate the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. This organization that he started, this is your annual fundraiser for the Scholarship Fund, and that Scholarship Fund has done a lot of great things to help deserving young men and women in Cleveland already, and I'm sure we'll continue to do that going forward. I'd like to start by recognizing the Cleveland chapter of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference for everything that you have done to help those in your community. I think back, I was a young boy in the 1960s, and I didn't really understand everything that was going on back there, but the history and the battles and the education that has had to go on in our country, it's just amazing to me to see where we've come from, but I also know that we still have a lot more work that we have to do, and particularly in the area of education. It's much more difficult for young men and women who come to this church to get an education. I grew up in the city of Akron. I grew up in a small home, 800 square feet. I had 3 brothers. My parents, for much of my childhood, 2 of my grandparents lived with us. We were packed into that little 800 square foot home, and it was nice, but we had a loving family. I went to Akron Public Schools. My father told all 4 of us very early on that our family didn't have enough money to pay for college, so we should learn a trade, we should figure something else out. And I didn't accept that, and I said, no, I'm going to find a way to go to college. And so with some scholarship help and working 2 jobs, I eventually got my way through college and earned a degree in electrical engineering. But I will tell you, you can take one approach and say, well, that must have been pretty difficult. It really wasn't difficult. And here's 2 things that I think I had going for me. One is not right, and that is the color of my skin. It was easier for me because of that. I think the other thing that I had going for me that I was very, very fortunate, and I didn't realize it at the time, but it was having 2 parents in my home. One, a father who went to work, the other, a mother who stayed home and made sure that we did our homework, made sure we got up out of bed and went to school, made sure we did our chores when we got home from school. And I don't think really appreciate when you're living that as a young child and then a young man, how valuable that is. So I had a couple advantages. Worked my way through, I got this degree in electrical engineering, and I was lucky enough to get a job with the power company in my local hometown. That's 39 years ago now. And after doing a whole lot of jobs, a couple years ago, they asked me to be the leader of that company, and I said, I just couldn't. As you reflect on your career, you really don't understand how that all really happened, but it did. But I think the number one thing that this job gives me an opportunity to do, we have great men and women that work at our company. They come to work every day. They are dedicated to keeping those lights on. They are dedicated to doing it as inexpensively as they can. They are great people, and they don't really need me to go do their jobs. They know their jobs better than I do. What this job gives me an opportunity to do here for a few years as the CEO of one of the top 200 companies in the country is do things to help, not just our company, but our communities. And as Reverend Hilton said, we serve 6 million customers across 5 states. That's a big opportunity to help. So we have a foundation that we use to help. We help in a lot of different ways. But when I took over 2 years ago, one of the things I said to myself is, look, when we look around our company doesn't look like our community. And so we launched a program to begin changing that. We're going to have 5,000 employees leave our company due to retirements. It's getting to be an aging workforce, or other reasons. Some just move, some find other jobs. But roughly 5,000 over the next 3 years will move on. That's 5,000 opportunities to really change how our company looks. And so we're working on that. You know, I'm here tonight. I will tell you, the first time I met Pastor Phillips, that first meeting had some negative feelings and negative emotion. It wasn't the way you'd want to meet somebody. And it started out, I'm in this job for 4 months. I have an annual meeting of shareholders down in Akron where you have to stand up and do this and talk to all the owners of your company. And as I was walking to the building, there were a couple bus loads of maybe some of you. Getting out on the sidewalk with signs. But here's what I remember saying. I remember saying to them, look, I'm not really sure what your grievances are, but I'm sure of one thing. We're not going to solve them on the sidewalk. So come on in and let's talk. And they did. They came in on a Saturday morning and we started talking. And that first conversation was a little difficult, but then we had another conversation, and then we had another conversation. And then we actually started working together. And now we're to the point where I think we have a really solid partnership. As we're moving forward now to hire new employees, we have lots of opportunities in lots of parts of our company. One of the things we do on the education front is we partner with local community colleges, Tri-C up here, for something called the Power Systems Institute. It's a program to train new line and substation and power plant workers for our company. It's a 2-year program. I have tried for 10 years to find a way to get young men and women from the inner cities to participate in that. And I haven't been able to figure it out. But we are on the verge right now of making that happen for the first time with the support of the Southern Christian leadership and all of the urban faith leaders that we have here in Cleveland. They're the ones teaching us how to do it. But it's going to work and it's going to help. We've put in place a diversity inclusion program. We went out and hired a professional to run that program for us. This past year, I made every single leader in our company go through a diversity and inclusion awareness training. And it was very insightful, even for me. Because I will tell you, I think I'm very open-minded. But when you go through and they force you to confront any biases that you may have that are deep down inside there, it's educational. And we put every one of our leaders through that so that as we make these decisions going forward, we can make them better. It's much easier, as I said, for somebody like me. I'm going to give you a couple facts. So back about 10 years ago, MIT, big, highly recognized engineering school over on the East Coast, and the University of Chicago did a study. And this study, they put resumes in front of companies. And the resumes were exactly the same resumes. But what they did is they changed the names. And on the names of those resumes, some of them, they put names that would clearly be associated as a white name. And then they put names on that would clearly be associated as an African American name. And guess what happened? The ones with the predominant, what would be associated as a white name, got 80% more interviews, even though the resume was exactly the same resume, exactly the same education, training, etc. That's why I say the color of my skin was helpful to me. Didn't realize it at the time, but as you learn and you grow and you mature and you take on leadership responsibilities like I have, you do learn those things. There was another study that was done, and it was 1,400 applicants for a technology company. And when all they did was look at the resumes, a white male from a recognized university got 80% more interviews than someone who was of a different ethnicity, different gender, or a university that wasn't recognized. But then they used a couple of their HR professionals to actually do screening interviews of all these 1,400 candidates. When they actually took the time to talk to these candidates, the 20% of the interviews that it went to 60%, just by beginning to talk and getting to know somebody a little differently. So it's clear we've got a lot of work to do. That then flows into our education system too. And the things you do with your scholarship fund and the things you do to just help keep some of these kids in school. You know, the city of Cleveland is making a lot of progress. 5 high schools in the city now have 100% graduation rates, but there's a lot more work to do. Still 1 in 3 don't graduate in 4 years from high school. And the problem with what I do for a living and what most big companies do for a living is this. Jobs that we have today, everything is much more technical. And it takes education beyond high school. It doesn't have to be a 4-year engineering degree like I have, but it takes some education, whether it's at Tri-C in a community and technical program, or it's a trade education, or something like that, in order to get in. And it's going to be probably 60 to 70% of the jobs are going to need something beyond high school. So we've got to find a way to fix this. So I applaud what you're trying to do with your scholarship fund, and I know you can't help everybody. I applaud what you do to, like I said, just even help these kids stay in school. We're going to try to do this with this PSI program. We hire customer service workers. We are going to figure out how to help. I can tell you that. You know, one of the things when you run a company, you get a few years. We don't run these companies for very long. In my case, it'll probably be about 5 or 6 years total, if I'm lucky. I got 2 in, and hopefully the board will decide to keep me for a little while longer. But what you do is you get an opportunity then to put your mark on a company. And when I sat down with my leadership team, my first day on the job, this is what I talked to them about. Is we have to become a company that really is a company that we serve communities. That's what we do. We keep the lights on in these communities. Every customer, I don't manufacture a pop product and sell it in China. I don't manufacture a product and sell it in California. What we make, we sell right to the communities that our employees live and work in. And so we should look like those communities, I think. So we're going to work really hard on that. You know, Reverend Cavins, I got to ask you to come up here for a minute, okay? Because I'm going to need a little bit of forgiveness when I'm done here. So, you know, when you're CEO of a big company, the other thing that happens is I get invited to a lot of these things. I really do. I could go to a gala every Friday night, every Saturday night. I get invited to a lot of these things. But when Reverend Cavins and Pastor Phillips talked to me, they said, listen, we want you to understand something really, really clearly. We're asking you to come talk. You don't have to bring money. You don't have to bring a check. Yes, it's a fundraiser, but don't worry about that. We don't want any money from you. And we just want you to come talk. That was the humbling part for me. Because I'm not, I get invited to a lot of things that I'm getting invited only because I'm the CEO of First Energy, and only because First Energy has a foundation that supports a lot of different things, and only because First Energy can write checks. And if they can get to me, they usually can get a check. So it was very humbling when they said, no, we don't want your money. We just want you. And so that's why I say, it's truly an honor to be here. But in the house of the Lord here, I'm going to need a little forgiveness because I didn't listen to you.
Oh, my. Oh,
So,
I hate that.
and I heard earlier what happens if you don't listen to him, but I did bring a check to help out with your foundation. And it's from our foundation, and it's in the amount of $25,000. So hopefully you'll accept it. And forgive me. But I've raised 5 children, and now I'm playing a role in helping to raise 5 grandchildren. And one of the things I've taught them is this. I've tried to teach them is this. You're always trying to teach your kids, even when they're 35, trust me. But one thing that I've tried to teach them is a gift is truly a gift when it's not expected. And so,
Beautiful.
so I'm going to wrap up and just say this. We are ready and willing to help. We're not the best at figuring out how to help, so we need help figuring that out. And we have a dialogue going on today that started on that sidewalk, but it's not happening on the sidewalk anymore. It's been happening in these churches, it's been happening in our offices, and it's ongoing. And our team at First Energy is committed to it, and they will stay committed to it, and we're going to figure out how to help.
Thank you so much.
And money is only part of it, and the best thing about the money is we didn't get to where we're at with money. We got to where we're at with words.
Beautiful.
But our ability to help financially, we want to do that
Thank
too.
you so much.
So thank you for having me.